Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Jamie Moore, the trainer to undisputed super lightweight champion Chantel Cameron, says, for me, I'd like for Chantel to face Harper next, then Jonas.
He doesn't want to run it back with Katie Taylor? That's the biggest money fight Chantel can have.
He said, for me, I'd like Chantel to have the opportunity to become a world champion at 2 different weights. I think women move more freely between the weights than men. I love domestic fights, so I'd love Terry Harper next, and then Chantel versus Tasha Jonas for undisputed at 154. I think that would be amazing for British boxing. Everyone is surprised that Chantel beat Katie, but I'm not. I said it 4.5 years ago when she first came to me. I said she had the style to beat Katie. I'm a huge fan of Katie Taylor, but at this stage of her career, she never beats Chantel, so I don't ideally want to go and do that. I'm not really thinking about Katie.
You notice that he wants Chantel to move up?
He'd want Chantel to go to 154 to fight Terry Harper or Natasha Jonas. Perhaps it's because Chantel Cameron in between fights, she gets big. Ahead of the Katie Taylor fight, I said here on the channel that she's a naturally bigger woman than Katie Taylor.
Some disagreed, citing the tail of the tape that they seem to be about the same size in terms of height and length.
But I told him, the night of the fight, once both fighters are rehydrated, you'll see that Chantel Cameron is in fact the bigger, younger fighter, and it'll be noticeable in the punches.
Because these are weight classes, not height classes.
Jamie Moore continued, I understand that she being Katie Taylor, will probably want the rematch to try and get revenge. But I'm thinking of Chantel.
I don't doubt that he is.
Jamie Moore would prefer that Chantel move up in weight, but a rematch with Katie Taylor entails moving down. Chantel herself, she said she's willing to do it. She said she'd like to fight for Katie Taylor's belts next time.
Moving up would be easier than moving down.
Remember, if she were to move up in weight to 154, the 2 champions that are up there are not true junior middleweights.
Natasha Jonas, Terry Harper.
They've campaigned at lighter weights than both Chantel and Katie.
So the situation is manageable, winning a title at junior middleweight.
Jamie Moore continued, she being Chantel Cameron, probably only has a couple more years before she cracks on and enjoys life after boxing, so the more she can achieve in that time, the better. I don't think there's a bigger fight financially than the Taylor rematch, but you have to get the stage to where you ask yourself, what matters more? Is it a bit more about money or creating memories and legacies that will last forever? Money doesn't last forever. It has been suggested that Cameron could drop down to lightweight in order to rematch Taylor and also get the chance to become undisputed in a second division.
Isn't that what Jamie Moore wants? The chance for Chantel to become a 2-division champion?
Yeah, it is, but he wants Chantel to move up and do it, not down.
Been telling you guys, at 135 pounds, Katie Taylor stands a legitimate chance of beating Chantel, and I think Jamie Moore knows it.
Jamie Moore, who would oversee that weight cut, added, on the morning, Chantel was 1.5 pounds under, so she had a rehydration drink to bring her up, so she came in just under the limit. So she wasn't far off from doing lightweight anyway.
Sounds good.
Chantel got tired towards the tail end of that fight with Katie Taylor, and you saw Katie start to put her punches together, lay into Chantel Cameron in the pocket, who had so clearly gassed out. What effect could cutting an extra 5 pounds have on her gas tank?
She hasn't made lightweight in something like 4 or 5 years.
Even if he hasn't expressed it, I believe that Jamie Moore has legitimate concerns about Chantel cutting down to 135. He just doesn't want to say it.
And I don't blame him. He has to look out for his fighter. But underneath it all, I think that's what's going on.
Everything was on Katie's terms last time. Everything, like literally everything. And I'd said to Shan, just don't, as long as you're happy with the money, don't go against it, because if they want the rematch afterwards, they're going to have to give you some terms, because you've done everything which was in your power to make the fight. And once you come out on top, you'll have a bit of pulling power, and she deserves some terms. There's no way she should have to do everything on Katie Taylor's terms again next time.
I've loved Chantel Cameron for many years.
And I love her still.
But if I had to guess, if I had to interpret Jamie Moore's commentary, I get the sense that they would prefer that Katie come back up to 140 instead of them dropping down to 135. Now, maybe Chantel's not bothered by it, but I do get the sense that Jamie is, because Jamie knows she puts on a bit of size in between fights.
Bit of weight.
Good weight in good places, yes, but better still, it'll be harder to make lightweight than it would be to make super lightweight. That's why he'd prefer that she move up and fight Terry Harper or Natasha Jonas.
I feel like there's a chance that the rematch hits a snag, that the rematch hits a snafu in terms of weight.
You heard what Jamie said. Jamie feels that in a rematch, Chantel shouldn't just acquiesce to everything that Katie wants because she won the first fight. But what kind of demands aside from weight and money?
What other demands could Chantel have?
In reference to what? What else aside from the fight purses and the weight at which the contest takes place? Immediately after the fight, Chantel said she'd like to drop down and fight for Katie's belts. Is Jamie Moore trying to convince her to stay put, stay where she is?
Telling you, Katie stands a better chance of winning that fight at 135 than at 140, and I think Jamie knows it.
Leave it all in the gym. Trying to make the weight. You won't have enough of yourself to bring to the fight.
But if you want to become a 2-division champion, that's one way you can do it. Go to lightweight.
Men's super middleweight news. Former 2-division champion Demetrius Andrade stands firm that Canelo is quote-unquote running from real fighters.
Like you ran from Yanni Kanelai, or like you ran from Zach Parker? Get a load of this guy to fucking nerve. You think Canelo is running from guys at a time when he's in the running for either Dimitri Bivol or David Benavidez? If things don't work out with them, I would love for Canelo to fight this guy and shut him up.
Somebody needs to. No more excuses, said Andrade on his social media account recently. Stop running. In addition to tucking his tail in between his legs and avoiding a showdown against him, Andrade is convinced that Alvarez is ducking the super middleweight division's top guys. Earlier this month, in his first appearance of the year, Alvarez sliced and diced the hapless defense of John Ryder, sending the brave Brit to the canvas before winning a one-sided decision. Hey, how do you become an undisputed champion by ducking all of a division's top fighters?
You can't.
Canelo fought all the champions that were there. So to what fighters is Demetrius referring to? He can't be referring to himself because he's only been there for one fight.
And that was against a journeyman and Desmond Nicholson.
You could have fought a top guy, an unbeaten fighter ranked in the top 10 at the time in Zach Parker, but you got injured.
I don't believe he was injured.
Demetrius continued, unless you fight real fighters, don't you ever think of retiring, because you would never get the respect from us real fighters. Fight the fights boxing fans actually want to see you fight. Stop running from real fighters.
Yeah, I'm sure Canelo Alvarez loses a lot of sleep over what Demetrius Andrade thinks.
Real fighters. He thinks of himself as a real fighter. This guy's entire legacy is shooting himself in the foot, making bad business decisions, and avoiding fights with real fighters like Jermel Charlo many years ago, Arislandi Lara, who Canelo Alvarez fought but Demetrius didn't. He thought it would be a better idea to fight Jack Colquet, and we see how that decision has aged.
Didn't fight Jermel, didn't fight Lara, didn't fight Matvey Korobov, didn't fight Sergey Didivinchenko.
I remember him saying that he didn't want to have to fight Daniel Jacobs. I remember that when they were both on the same side of the street, and we know he didn't want to fight Yanni Beck, but he didn't fight Zach Parker either.
What real fighters has Demetrius Andrade fought? The man is 36 years old. He's older than Canelo.
At junior middleweight, at middleweight, now it's super middleweight. What real fighters has he fought that he thinks he commands the respect of his contemporaries?
Canelo thinks you're fucking horrible. The fight fans think you're boring.
You're telling Canelo to fight the fights that boxing fans actually want to see you fight in. Let me tell you something.
What?
Over 70,000 fight fans in your country.
Right here.
What was it, 76,000? 76,000 fight fans showed up to see Canelo Alvarez fight Billy Joe Saunders. 76,000 showed up. When have you ever done that?
Since you think that he's fighting in fights that nobody wants to watch.
His last fight with John Ryder, south of the border, over 50,000 people showed up for that fight. 450,000 bought the goddamn thing right here in America.
When have you ever done that?
Demetrius Andrade is best described as a con artist, a grifter, a guy who almost never fights in risky fights and thinks that he's special because he's an unbeaten fighter, when in reality,
You're still an unbeaten fighter because you never fight anybody.
you downplayed Yanni Beck after the Denzel Bentley fight, but Denzel Bentley had the stones to fight him. You didn't.
You bailed.
You said you were going to fight Zach Parker, but we all know you faked an injury to get out of that fight. You didn't want to be the away fighter on a Frank Warren show against one of his unbeaten guys, so John Ryder stood in your place.
Then you downplay him.
For taking care of the guy that you were supposed to take care of first, so you can turn around, fight some journeyman.
You think you're special.
Unbeaten Austin Trout, Arislandi Lara, Miguel Cotto, Gennady Golovkin 3 times, unbeaten Callum Smith, unbeaten Billy Joe Saunders, unbeaten Caleb Plant, even the version of Sergey Kovalev that Canelo fought is better than anyone and everyone on Demetrius Andrade's resume.
Because he was a champion, reigning WBO champion at light heavyweight, whereas Demetrius, in spite of being a two-division champion, he never beat a champion to be a champion. Every version of a title he ever fought for was vacant.
One of the more forgettable fighters of the previous era and this one, lest we forget, this guy is 36 years old without a single memorable fight, a single signature fight.
Zero.
But he's got the fucking audacity to try to wag his finger in Canelo's face. See, what your problem is, you think people don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe Golovkin should have fought you. And maybe Jermall should have fought you too. But you should have fought Jermell.
That logic works both ways, you know. It doesn't just apply to them, it applies to you too.
Yeah,
you should have fought Chalo. You should have fought Lara.
Karabov, Derevyanchenko. You should have fought Jacobs. I don't know what the hell you were so busy with. You couldn't have fought Daniel Jacobs.
You should have fought Yanni Beck, and you should have fought Zach Parker.
You think you're special. You think you're too good for those guys. Coincidentally, Canelo thinks he's too good for you.
It's your problem. The logic you apply to Canelo, you don't apply to yourself. And you're older than he is. You've got the amateur background that he ain't got.
This guy's an Olympian, in case you didn't know.
And he's just another unbeaten American fighter thinking he's special for it. He's so unique.
If protecting your major special, you'd be the one putting 76,000 asses in 76,000 seats.
If that really mattered. As it stands, it's the guy with 2 losses in his resume that outsells everybody else, you included.
You don't stand out. You've done absolutely nothing to try to. You're just another guy. Just another guy that wants to win the Canelo Alvarez sweepstakes. So you better take a number and wait in line.
And just in keeping with the theme of all things Canelo, Benavidez's promoter, Canelo received one of the most lucrative offers of his career. This story comes to us at a time when Eddie Reynoso earlier this week stated he had yet to receive an offer from anyone, from Top Rank, from the PBC, from Matchroom. According to Eddie Reynoso, an offer was never received. However, Lewkowics in an open letter indicates that he emailed an official offer to Reynoso on Monday. Since you have chosen to conduct our negotiations for David Benavidez to face Saul Canelo Alvarez in public, I'm forced to correct a few mistakes you made in claiming you haven't received any offers, Lewkowics stated. On Monday, May 29th at 4:45 p.m., I emailed you what I'm sure would be one of the most lucrative offers of Canelo Alvarez's career to face Benavidez.
So what are we looking at here?
We're looking at a bona fide case of he said, she said, where Eddie Reynoso says that he didn't receive any offer from anyone earlier this week. Samson Lewkowics says
that's not true.
Feuding fans are going to stay on the side that they're already on. The Canelo fans are going to side with Canelo. They're going to side with Eddie. And the Benavidez fans, really the PBC supporters, the Haymanites, they're going to take Samson Lewkowics' side.
So it's going to break down. When I saw the story caught as much traction as it did, I thought there would be something more substantial here, but it's just a case of he said, she said.
Please know that you do indeed have an offer to face David Benavidez, a sizable one, and I must tell you that I'm offended by your claim that I'm fantasizing about making this fight happen.
¿Qué posibilidades hay realmente de que se pueda hacer la pelea de Canelo-Benavidez?
Eso se lo tiene que pedir, preguntar a Eddie Reynoso. Eddie Reynoso recibió una propuesta por escrito muy honorable. Por supuesto no se puede decir la cantidad, pero calculo que debe ser una de las más altas que ha recibido, si no es la más alta. Porque yo no estoy en la cuenta bancaria de él, así que no puedo decir, pero para mí que en el peso ha sido la oferta más grande que hemos escuchado.
¿Eso implicaría que Canelo tenga que hacer 2 o 3 peleas con PBC o...?
No, una sola pelea. Le gana Benavidez. Él tiene el privilegio.
Samson Lewkowics' verbiage was very interesting in that interview conducted recently, saying it's a one-fight deal. Benavidez beats him, and he can go on his merry way.
Well, what if he beats Benavidez?
Samson was asked whether or not it's a multi-fight deal, and I feel like Samson chose his words quite carefully. I'm not sure.
In any event, I think Canelo should fight him. Of the fights that are on the table, the Dimitri Bivol fight, the Benavidez fight, the Benavidez fight is the more winnable fight.
In reference to that, Samson Lewkowics stated, if you are also unable to find this open letter and no one tells you about it, would anyone who knows him please let Eddie know that I will send this same offer anytime for him to communicate to Canelo Alvarez. All he needs to do is provide a working email address, apparently.
Hasn't been much in terms of updates after Samson Lewkowics made this public statement, so at this point in the juncture, it really is just a case of he said, she said.
And as stated, Canelo's existing supporters are going to side with Eddie Reynoso. The PBC shills, the Haymanites, and all of that human garbage, they're going to side with Samson Lewkowics.
So it's going to break down until there are further developments.
I saw the traction that the story was getting and how some content creators here on YouTube chose to package the story, frame it, claiming that Canelo Alvarez had ducked David Benavidez.
Sensationalized headlines for clicks, presuppositions.
And we're not even there yet. At the very least, it's a case of he said, she said, but I am holding out hope that Canelo Alvarez decides to take up Samson Lewkowics on his offer or have Matchroom and DAZN make a counter offer of their own.
In the event they want to stage Canelo Alvarez's next fight.
Eddie Hearn of Matchroom has made it clear that he means to stage the rematch between Canelo and Demetrius, though if they're not seeing eye to eye in terms of the prescribed weight for the contest, why don't you just make a play for the Benavidez fight instead?
You don't want Canelo Alvarez floating over there to the PBC. Make a play to do the show. Do the fight.
If you heard Samson Lewkowics' recent interview at length, he makes the claim that the PBC's got all the cash, they've got all the dough.
When a sizable portion of their stable, a sizable chunk, is sitting on the shelf.
Collecting dust.
Ross.
Due to budget cuts, I've no doubt. They ain't got it in the budget to keep all of these guys busy and active. This is an opportunity for Matchroom and DAZN to flex some muscle.
Show them how it's done.
Canelo Alvarez very recently sold approximately 450,000 pay-per-view buys fighting the likes of John Ryder. Bringing the Benavidez fight to their platform, what could that sell? What could that do for their platform?
Over 1 million.
The incentive is there for Matchroom and DAZN to make a play for that fight. And I'm sure that Samson Lewkowics would prefer that the fight land on Showtime as opposed to DAZN, but it's really not up to Samson. He's not in control here.
Your fighter ain't the A-side fighter. You don't call the shots.
It's just something to consider. Ultimately, I would prefer that Canelo fight David Benavidez in September before going back in there with Demetrius Bivol. That Bivol fight is something that they can revisit.
The Benavidez fight is the one I want to see. Or an Andrade fight if things don't work out with either.
But this time, this entire story is little more than a case of he said, she said.
That's it.